All right. Hopefully this is going to be the first in a nice long series of all sorts of different musical knowledge that you can use for playing good style music like bluegrass music, old time country music, even modern country music and pop music still follows the same ideas. Okay, so I got my whiteboard planned out right here, and down here in my workshop where you can see I got all sorts of spools. I just can't get that out of the camera, but that's just the way it is. But you know, it's my workspace and it kind of works out well where I have this camera right here and you can see what I'm going to be working on this whiteboard. Okay, now the basics when it comes to music theory here, and it should be nice and clear for you, is that we're going to work off everything that has to do with a C major scale. So I'm going to put that right up here and we're going to make some sense out of a lot of different things that happen in this form of music. Okay, so if I write all C to C, and we always start with C major because there's no sharps or flats, okay, and it goes right around the circle. If I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in a circular form, I can do that right over here. And you know what? I'm going to choose a different color. So let's see. Let's go with green. Hopefully you can see green. So if I go C, right, there we go. D, E, F, G, A, and B. I'll show you the reason why we use a circle the way we do. Okay. Now the nice thing about this C major scale is you can demonstrate all sorts of music theory and not involve any sharps or flats. But we'll use another video to get into that. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is what's called the number system, or what we sometimes call the Nashville number system. And this is going to account for about, I want to say, 90 to 95% of music theory when it applies to good kind of music like we like to play. Okay, and how it works is that whatever key you're in, it don't matter if it's minor, major, flat, sharp, it doesn't matter. Okay, your key is going to be your 1, and typically you'll see this written as a Roman numeral and a lot of other different transcriptions. Okay, so we're going to be using that from here on out. Okay, now a lot of the structure is going to follow 1, 4, and 5. Sometimes it'll have a quick 2 throw in there. Okay, and then even on top of that, we'll get into the relative minors, which is going to be the 6 minor. Okay, so the easiest thing to do, I'm going to carry this down and we're going to use this as a focal reference right here. Okay, so if I'm playing a tune in C, like let's say it's Toy Heart, On My Mind, anything with Ernest Tubb, you're going to have a 1, 4, 5 system. Okay, and if we're working with C major, our key is going to be C. Okay, now we're going to start right here with the number 1, right? Our next chord that we need is going to be the 4. So if this is 1, we're just going to go right up the scale, or why we use a circle, you just go right around the circle. It don't really matter where you are. That's why a lot of times we use in music, we use circle theory instead of lines, because, well, this has a beginning and this is the end. Well, what happens if you want to go, well, with a circle, there is no beginning or end. So you just go around. Okay, now we like to go clockwise when we work with 4s and 5s. So with this guy, so you start right here at C. Okay, now this is our 1. And we want to go to 4. So we're going to go 2, 3, 4. So your next one's going to be F for your 4 chord. And right next to it is going to be 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is your G. Oops. Got a little hair on there. See if that's a little bit better. There we go. Okay. And believe it or not, This is going to account for a lot of music. It is that simple, okay? Now, we'll make it a little bit more complicated. Let's change the key. Let's say you want to go to traditionally what is the next key, which is going to be G, okay? Now for the 4 and the 5, we're going to start here, and we're still going to go clockwise, okay? So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. There's our 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So G, C, and D is what you need to play the vast majority of this music. Now let's say somebody has a different kind of voice and they want to play in a very, very natural country key, which is the key of E. A lot of male voices tend to gravitate towards E. A lot of Randy Travis stuff is in E, and so is Ernest Tubb, and a lot of traditional country music, like I know Webb Pierce, Fair and Young did a lot in key of E. Okay, so if you start right here and you go clockwise, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right, so we need A and B. How about your next one? Let's say you want to go to, a lot of people like to play out of D2. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Start right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a 5 for A, right? And you'll see a lot of people, and you'll even see me do this in classes. I'll just count them right up on my fingers. So we can do this for A right here. Okay. So A is my 1, B, C, D, right? There it is. And then E would be my 5th. And that'll take care of pretty much any key change that you can think of. All right. Now the cool thing, if we go one step further, now a lot of church tunes and a lot of country tunes from the 60s, 70s, 80s, they also have a 2 chord in them. Especially, it's an indicator that you're going to go to a 5 right after it. Okay, so usually you have like a 2-5 sequence, and it doesn't really matter because all you have to do is either bump 1 based on your key. Okay, so if this is my 1, here's my 2. So my 2 is going to be the D chord, and you'll hear that played right before G. A lot of times, it's not always, but nearly always. Okay, now if you're in the key of G for a 1, A is my 2. A lot of people that play with capos, like guitar players, they like to say the word A instead of the 2. I don't know why. I think it's because they're used to playing in G their whole life. If you're playing in E, okay, now the next one is going to be in F, and this is actually a whole step difference. This is a half a step between E and F and B and C. So, all right, we got our first sharp. It's just the way it goes, okay? But you figure that kind of stuff out with music. E, your quick, or I'm sorry, D, your quick 2 is going to be an E chord. That's a whole step. And then for A, your quick 2 chord is going to be a B. So that's going to be right there. Okay. Now this is also going to apply if you have like a quick relative minor. Okay, so if it's a 2 minor, which we're going to write Roman numeral 2 with a lowercase m, it's just going to be the minor chord of it. It's okay. So if we're in the key of C for a 1, here's your 2, and you just make it a minor. So guess what I can do with all of these right here? The work's already done. So I just go right down here. Here's A minor. I'm going to play F sharp minor. This one's going to be an E minor. And that's a B minor. Okay. This is also very common to hear right before a quick 4, or sometimes to fall into a 5 chord. So we're just going over the theory so that way you can understand and follow along when we work through tunes. Okay. Now the relative minor is what we call a 6 minor. and that's going to play into where you are right here. Okay, it gets a little more complicated, but I'll tell you real quick what a relative minor is. A relative minor shares the same scale as its relative major. Okay. Now just to show you real quick how that works, let me use a different color up here. If this is a C major scale, I might as well just write C major over here real quick. I'm going to use, let's say, red. Okay. Now a C major right here. I'm going to find the relative minor of that is going to be the 6th minor. So we're going to count them the same exact way. So we go 1 is where we're going to start. Okay, it's home base. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's an A minor scale. And it's going to be the same exact notes. We can write IN. That's fine. Okay. It ends up being the same exact notes as a C major scale, and it goes to why majors and minors are structured that way. Okay, and that's another video. All right, so if I start, you always start with where you're at. So there's an A. Okay, now my next note in a minor scale is going to be a whole step. Okay, now the next one is going to be a half step. So that is actually going to be a C. Then it's a whole, another whole, ends up being, yeah. You can see exactly how there's no sharp or flat difference. It's almost like you took a C major and you just shifted it over. It ends up being the same exact notes, okay? And it's very popular to use relative minors to put a different styling or an inflection on a tune without really changing much in the way of where the notes are going to go. Okay, so relative minors are pretty important to know in the grand scheme of things. I would say probably, just offhand guess, probably like 20% of the tunes out there might use a relative minor. Okay, so relative minor for C we established as an A minor. You know what, I'm going to use that red marker again. So that would be an A minor. Okay. Now, a G, we need the relative minor for this, and it's going to be the 6th over. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's an E minor. All right. E, that one's a little tricky. It goes back to the minors and majors thing, so I'll show you that one later. So D, I'm going to skip down here. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There it goes. I forgot to change that as 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's a B minor. And then for A, here's another one of the sharps and flats differences. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The way it works out with the A scale, it has actually an F sharp minor. Again, we'll show that in another video. And then for E, you want to take a guess? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's actually a sharp C sharp minor. Okay. Relatively, the way we work with a lot of these tunes, you only worry about these on the tunes that you want to practice or you need to practice pretty hard. Now, the easy ones to remember are the ones that are whole notes, okay? And then you just kind of backfill with the sharps and flats as needed. All right, so there's the basics when it comes to that. I can give you one more. We'll call this a bonus and then we'll call it a day. So if I put the key of F right here, what do we end up doing? Let's find out. So if you want to sing out of F, we're going to use that as the 1, 4, 5. So there's my 1. My 4 is going to be 2, 3, 4. I'll show you this one day. It's a B flat. Now the nice thing is that relatively the 5 is going to be the C. Blue marker don't want to work. And then for a 2, it is actually a G, so that's a whole step. Uh-oh. Looks like I got a dry blue marker. Yeah, you can't really see that, can you? All right. Let's use a new color. Choose, how about purple? It's a good color. There we go. That looks nice. So B flat, C, and G. Okay. Now the relative minor is going to be just the same thing dropped over, so that's a G minor. Okay. Now relative minor for an F. The way it works out with the sharps and flats, it is actually a whole letter. Okay, so you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minor. So that would be a D minor. And these are connected. Same exact scale. Between an A minor and a C, a G and an E minor is the same exact scale. Same thing with a D and a B minor. Now the sharps and the flats, we'll get through that in a new video.